First of all, he's a character.
He was laughing a lot.
And he's a real personality, and he's very smart. He's sharp as you can be, and he's a real leader. Again, the relationship is very good. He likes me, I like him. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't like him. I said, why shouldn't I like him?
Why shouldn't you like him? Seems rather obvious, but here's one reason, a flashback to 2 years ago.
Otto Warmbier is returning to Cincinnati tonight, but it appears that he is gravely ill and has been in a coma since sometime after his conviction and sentencing to hard labor for allegedly stealing a poster.
He's blind, he's deaf, he's got a feeding tube, and we kneel down and we hug him and try to connect with him, and he's a complete vegetable. And his bottom teeth look like they had taken a pair of pliers and rearranged them.
It's hard to watch. That was Fred Warmbier describing the state of his son after they got him back from North Korea. Otto was dead less than a week later. Now the Warmbier family once again forced to speak out publicly 2 years later, except this time talking about Donald Trump and his bizarre, reprehensible claim that Kim Jong-un knew nothing about Otto's apparent torture. Here's what they said today, quote, "We've been respectful during this summit process. Now we must speak out. Kim and his evil regime are responsible for the death of our son, Otto. Kim and his evil regime are responsible for unimaginable cruelty and inhumanity. No excuses or lavish praise can change that." Joining our conversation, Michelle Goldberg, columnist for The New York Times, and the Rev Al Sharpton, host of Politics Nation here on MSNBC and president of the National Action Network. Matt, Ron, and Joyce all still here. Donald Trump tweeting, it's always a beauty, to borrow one of his words, this in the last few minutes. "I never like being misinterpreted, but especially when it comes to Otto Warmbier and his great family. Remember? I got Otto out, along with 3 others. The previous I'm not reading all this. Basically disputing the account of a family that lost everything. There's sometimes I don't know what to say.
It's outrageous. First of all, this is a pattern. You're talking about a president that said he believed Putin over his own intelligence officers, whose son-in-law was talking to the Crown Prince even after a Saudi reporter that was writing and living here in New York, in the United States, writing for the Washington Post, was killed and actually dismembered. And now you have him saying that, well, Kim Jong-un said he didn't know, and I have to take him at his word. It doesn't matter whether you went and got him. You got him from Kim Jong-un. Now you're going to sit up and give the guy you got him from credit for saying I had no knowledge that an American student was in North Korea and I controlled everything in North Korea, but I didn't know they were doing all of this to him. That's who was the one that let you take him out, Donald Trump. This is atrocious on his face.
So there was a moment, a lot of people after 2008 said to me, is it your fault that you didn't tell Sarah Palin how to answer the question from Katie Couric, what did you read? And I said, I guess it was my fault. I didn't think to do it. And I'm watching Trump with Hannity, where he says, why shouldn't I like him? And I'm thinking, why didn't Pompeo or Bolton tell him he's a murderous dictator? But why should you have to tell him?
But even if they did tell him, do you think that, like, A, he would care, or B, that that it would really penetrate, right? I mean, he doesn't read his briefing books. He sort of doesn't take in information that's contrary to what he wants to believe. He clearly does feel a rapport with this man, I think, because they have kind of similar personality types, you know? I think he envies Kim Jong-un and the lavish deference that he gets as a totalitarian dictator, would like Americans to do sort of gymnastic displays in his honor the way the North Koreans do. And, you know, this is just a man who I feel like one of the meta stories of the last 2 years has been his disloyalty to kind of America. But we also see that he's just there is no individual American to whom he will be loyal and to whom he will stick up for. You know, so you see first with Khashoggi, you know, a resident of America. He gets murdered and, you know, the United States basically throws up its hands and says that this isn't really going to affect our relationship with Saudi Arabia. Now an actual American citizen is murdered. He sort of exploits the parents as props at his State of the Union when he's taking a very bellicose stance towards North Korea. When that no longer suits him, and I don't think that anybody would argue with negotiating with Kim Jong-un, but this kind of, just like ridiculous flattery, and I mean, it's obscene. And you see that the fact that this man has kind of been responsible for the horrific death of an American citizen means nothing to Donald Trump. And I think this is something that American journalists keep in mind, that we know that if, it used to be that you could kind of count on the American government if something happened to you abroad. You just can't anymore. No American citizen can.
Joyce.
We're on notice. We've watched President Trump do this for 3-4 years now. We've repeatedly watched him kowtow to dictators who he has nice words for, words that he would never spare for the likes of Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all on his enemies list. We have a saying in the South, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. The American people need to stop being fooled by this man.
Ron Klain, there is something about the chip that must be missing in your DNA to re-traumatize a father who describes the bottom teeth of his son as being rearranged with pliers. There's something, we call him a pathological liar. There's something sociopathic about this behavior.
Well, I agree with that, Nicole, and I think it's one other thing, which is Donald Trump likes to be tough and strong, but he wimps out when he deals with these dictators face to face. It's really the art of the squeal. He's like a little mouse when he faces one of these dictators face to face. So he can tweet tough things, he can talk tough things, but he gets in the room with these dictators and he's just kind of bowled over. And so he takes Putin's word about the Russian elections, and he takes Kim Jong-un's word about what happened to Otto Warmbier. And he doesn't have the kind of moral center that allows a president of either party, of any ideology, to stand up and go toe-to-toe with a tough foreign leader. He just crumbles when he's face-to-face with one of these foreign leaders.
Matt Miller, I was reminded not just of the Putin moment, the Khashoggi, shameful conduct of this president around his slaughter and dismemberment, but I was also reminded of the president's days-long, maybe weeks-long war of words with the Khan family when they took to the podium at the Democratic National Convention and criticized Donald Trump, as well as his 7-day war of words with the widow and her appearances after her husband, LaDavid T. Johnson, was murdered. It's not hyperbole to say that for Donald Trump, nothing is sacred. And I heard from a former national security advisor who was in this White House when Otto Warmbier's body came back, who was just galled by what she saw from her former boss in this appearance in Vietnam.
Yeah, Nicole, I felt so sorry for the Warmbier family watching the president's words. I mean, they obviously suffered the most unspeakable tragedy that any parent can suffer. And to have the leader of their own government add to their pain by making excuses for the dictator who was responsible for that loss, it must be just really beyond the pale. I think what happens here is, look, there are two ways to compromise Donald Trump. One is to spend a lot of money at his hotels or at his resorts, and the other is to flatter his ego. And foreign government leaders, foreign dictators especially, have figured this out. He's an easy mark. And so whether it's by telling him he won the election all on his own and not because of Russian interference like Vladimir Putin did, whether it's throwing a big party for him in Saudi Arabia and plastering his image on the side of a building like the Saudis did, or whether it's sending him beautiful letters and telling him how great he is like Kim did, what it means is at the end, the president will take your side even over a grieving American family, and it is a real tragedy.
Ron Klain, we're losing you. You got to come to New York so we can keep you for the whole hour. Thanks for spending the first half with us. When we come back, Michael Cohen's roadmap to the potential crimes committed by Donald Trump. Where does the investigation go next?
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.